Kim, you have the lead on the pledge, and let's start the recording and let us begin.
All right, here we go.
Kim Connor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A cacophony of voices. I love it. Well done. Thank you all. All right, welcome to the regularly scheduled May 20th meeting of the Philipstown Planning Board, the third Thursday of every month. I have a couple of remarks before we get started in our meeting, but first let's do the roll call. Cheryl.
Kim Connor.
Here.
Dennis Gagnon. Peter Lewis.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Peter is home. It is his wife's 65th. Oh, his wife's birthday, and yeah. Sorry, Shelley. It's his wife's birthday, and we wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Laura O'Connell.
Here.
Neil Toman.
Here.
Heidi Wendell.
Here.
And Neil Zuckerman.
Okay, here. Thank you very much, Cheryl. And we have a pinch hitter from the Legal Eagle team. So Adam, thank you for joining us tonight.
Nice to see everyone.
And Ron is here, to the stalwart engineer. So the three quick comments. One, I want to thank the board for your tireless work. This is our 15th meeting since we resumed after COVID. We've had 2 special meetings plus our monthly meeting. It's hard. COVID is tough for countless reasons, but the Zoom meetings are hard. It takes longer. It is more tiring, and we go longer. So it's harder and longer. And I thank you. We've had, with the extra meetings we've done to be able to attend to the needs of a couple of applicants, I want to thank you. And in recognition of that work, I would like to return to this board's policy for the month of August 2021. For the 10 years I've been on this board, every August except during COVID, we had a respite from our work in the month of August. And so I will return to that, if not policy, that accommodation for the summer, and in recognition of your hard work. And so there will be no Philipstown Planning Board meeting on the third Thursday of the month of August. And I'm sure everyone, including our paid staff as well as our volunteer board members, will appreciate that. And I want to thank the public for their consideration of our need for a little break in the momentum we've had. Third piece is I've asked legal staff to just talk, since I know a couple other entities in town have moved back to in-person meetings, and I wanted Adam to provide us current status of the Governor Cuomo's executive orders related to public meetings during COVID. Adam.
Yeah, well, the general order that was in place by the governor remains in place. And that means that this board still has the authority, if it so chooses, to conduct its meetings remotely. That's at the desire of the majority of this board. Ultimately, you can go live again if the majority so chooses. So the status of the governor's order remains in place, and it's the board's call as to whether you want to continue doing this remotely or go live.
Board members' questions of Adam or opinions on that? Heidi, please go ahead.
So my opinion is that it increases access to the meetings. I think I'm not sure I wasn't on the board during the time period when the meetings were in person, other than attending the meetings as an audience member. But I would just say that I think that they're very well attended from the public. And I know that it's a little slower perhaps than the meetings would go if they were in person, perhaps. But I do appreciate the fact that, so I am personally the daughter-in-law of an 88-year-old person. And I know that, there still is disease out there. And so for two reasons: one, access, and secondly, concern about, I got the J&J vaccine, so I have I still have some ability to get the disease. And I just think it would make sense to continue this for a few more months. That's my opinion. Maybe through September when schools go back, or I'm not sure. But I think that it has worked, in my opinion, and it actually increases access in some ways, because a lot of people who can't actually make it to meetings live. This is kind of based not just on the planning board meetings, but all meetings I attend, can attend, to the portion of the meeting that they want to attend, and et cetera. So that's my 2 cents.
Well said. Thank you, Heidi. Others? Kim?
So I really don't like this format. I find it extremely difficult after a while to concentrate. Like, I know I'm not someone who works on Zoom all day. Like some people, that's what they do. They're in Zoom meetings all day, so they've adjusted. Like my husband is like that. But for me personally, I just find it a lot easier to have my documents in the right place, to be able to look at them, to be able to talk about them, to be able to get my thoughts in order when it's actually in person. I find Zoom just incredibly distracting. So that's my 2 cents. I mean, I know that more people turn up. I'd really love it if more people could turn up personally to the meetings and participate, more in person, because I think you just get a better sense of how town government works. But, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Others? Laura?
I'm kind of down the middle between the two. But my question is this: not knowing what the capacity is for, holding the meetings and the location of the meeting, and knowing that the projects that we have in front of us are actually drawing a lot of public attention. What does that mean? Does that mean that we limit the in-person? And if that's the case, then for those who can't make it in, like, what does it mean for them? And, at what point, like, is there going to be someone at the door, cutting people off? Like, if you're that 50th person, then everybody else that's standing online cannot enter. So just trying to be fair to everyone who's making the effort, that we should be able to provide the same, access, to everyone.
So we need a fact about how many people can go into the facility, I think. So Cheryl, if you could help us out go ahead, Kim.
So I just have one more thing to say, which is that most of the time we don't have a public hearing. I mean, we've had a lot of public hearings, but, in general, the public can speak when there's a public hearing and not outside of the public hearing. So, and the meetings are broadcast on YouTube. So I think everybody still has access, whether they're actually on the Zoom call or not. It's just one thing to think about. Another thing is that when we are in person, we occasionally do take comments from the audience, because they're live people right there and they're not just people with their hands up. So, it's just that's just an aside.
All right, so we need a fact. Dennis, go ahead, please. Dennis, did you want to say something?
Hey, I'll say something real quick. This is Bob Flaherty. I just want to let you know.
I prefer having in person because of the problems. Because of the problems I'm having here regarding this, I go for in-person meeting, live meeting.
Thank you, Dennis. Bob, go ahead, continue. We'll do an
I just want to let everyone know.
Ex officio speaker, go ahead.
Well, as you know, the town, we're back in the town hall and everything, but just to let you know, we never completed the AV portion of the upstairs. So there's nothing, no AV capabilities up there whatsoever right now. I mean, Cecile can come in and tape it and put it on later. We do have the capabilities of broadcasting live, but no one gave me the green light to set all that equipment up yet. So just want to let everyone know that if someone's
Okay, so it's not live, it would be taped.
Correct. So
Okay.
if someone's gonna present something, it's gonna be the easel stuff type of stuff. Okay, just want to let you know that.
Okay, that's very helpful, Bob. Neil, do you want to say something?
I'm sort of siding with Laura on this one. It's not an easy decision. There's definitely a dynamic that's available with a regular meeting. I'm not sure that when they wrote the codes that they really thought about, what is the nature of a public hearing, and does a Zoom meeting even really qualify as a public hearing? I mean, there's a lot of questions to think about. It is, because you're trying to make sure that as many people as possible have access. So even though I'm not really comfortable with the Zoom, I think it compromises certainly public hearings. I think that access wise, we might want to think about letting, give people another month, give people another month to sort of get used to going back to normal, and the town hall, maybe we can work with that. I don't want to do this in perpetuity, but I think maybe another month.
All right, so I think we've got a clear sentiment of the board. Let's take a vote. Would people like to stay in Zoom for at least the time being? That would mean the June meeting. Stay in Zoom. We can discuss it further there if health conditions change. All in favor of staying in Zoom for the June meeting, raise your hands, please. 1, 2, okay, we get fine. And I join that as well. Peter is not here, but that's the sentiment of the board. Thank you very much. I will say, as a personal perspective, I have two main pieces I carry with me with this job. One is balancing property rights with community rights. That is the balancing act I feel like I'm constantly doing and will try to do, and hopefully I get it right. And the second thing I'm trying to do is create as much transparency as possible for our deliberations and engagement with the public. My personal view is that Zoom is not creating perfect transparency because of the technology gap, but I think it's creating slightly more transparency than, because I fear, as Heidi mentioned, there is a segment of the population that will not come physically yet, even though we're getting much closer. And we're going to keep people away because of the space constraints that Laura talks about, or health concerns, then I'd like to stay this way because I know I'm not going to get sick via this approach. So thank you very much for the discussion. Let's move right into our public hearing for the night. I will, as I have done, I will continue to recuse myself from the Desmond Fish Library application, as I am on the board of that august institution. And I handed
Don't
over
we need
to.
No, so I think we need to approve the minutes.
Oh yes, thank you. So good, so good. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April board meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, Heidi. Any discussion? No edits. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. I'm sending a truck roll to Dennis's house for like a T1 line or whatever they call it. That's the one thing Bob, we got to get him some more IT at his mountaintop. Oh man. All right.
Let's have an open meeting.
Let's meet at Dennis's house. Everyone bring their laptop to Dennis's house.
That's fine.
Dennis's house. They'll solve everything.
They'll solve everything. Come on, everybody. Anita, let's go up to Dennis's house.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait,
Too much fun. Go ahead, Kim. Go ahead.
correspondence.
Yeah, I know. I don't think we have any additional correspondence beyond what the individual applications. Do we have, Cheryl, anything that's outside of the individual applications for correspondence?
No, not this month.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's begin the public hearing for Alice Curtis Desmond and Hamfish Library. Kim, you have the reins. Cheryl, why
Okay.
don't you read the note?
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Sure. Alice Curtis Desmond and Hamilton Fish Library, 472 Route 403, Garrison, New York. Tax map number 71.6-1-12 and 71.6-1-13. Applicant seeks to install a ground-mounted solar ribbon array integrated with the landscape's natural topography. We would also like to create a discovery path to provide community members welcoming and ADA accessible outdoor walkways and opportunities to learn about habitats that occur naturally on the library's property, as well as solar energy and design. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies of the application, plat map, and other related materials may be seen in the office of the planning board at the Philipstown Building Department. dated at Philipstown, New York, March 18th, 2021.
Okay, so at this point, I want to get an opinion from Adam because we've had the applicant come in and change certain aspects of their application. So I'm just wondering, where we are in the process and what our steps are, since we still have an open public hearing.
Yeah, at this juncture, the public hearing should be deemed to simply be continuing tonight. As I understand it, the applicant is simply taking off the solar panel array aspect of their application that was part of the original submission. So the applicant is welcome to make a brief presentation on their revised application. The planning board should accept public comments as well as any comments from the members. And then if appropriate, to close the public meeting.
Okay, so I see that Anita is on. Anita, are you the person who's going to be speaking for the Fish Library to talk about the changes? Oh, you're on mute. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you. You've all received our letter for the purposes for anybody who's watching who doesn't know. On May 12th, 2021, the Board of Trustees of the Desmond Fish Public Library voted to postpone the solar project and seek planning board approval only for the walking path at this time. This action reflects the trustees' need to prioritize the search for a new library director, as well as grant funding delays and rising costs.
Okay. So the next thing to do then is to ask if there are comments from members of the public. Cheryl, do you have the list? Or a list, or do you want to pick people? Anybody have their hand up?
If people want to put their hand up, I don't see any up right now.
Okay, so are there any comments from the members of the
And
public?
I have Carolyn Copeland.
Okay,
1 second.
Carolyn, she's going to put you up so then you can go ahead. And you'll have to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I know this was difficult, and I know that as a neighbor to the bordering property, we made our wishes known. Not sure what made this decision a reality, but we certainly appreciate it. We support the library, but we are very appreciative of your consideration of the neighbors. So I'm speaking for myself. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, so I guess there are no further comments. Does anyone on the board have any comments? Nope. Heidi? You're on mute, Heidi.
Yeah, I
there we
know.
go.
It took me 1 second. Yeah. I'm just trying to make
Sorry.
sure I understand what's currently in the project, what's involved in the discovery path now.
Thanks, Heidi. Our landscape architect, Paul, is on, or he was on, and he can pull up the plan. It's the plan that you've seen before, but just with the solar array removed.
Okay, well then maybe he doesn't have to address it. That's fine. Okay, so it's just the little
It's a
walkway, and is it going to include gardens or I know it has a reading garden already, but.
right. So so the idea is to have a path that's ADA accessible, that people can enjoy the property. there will be a bridge over the little emerging wetland that we have. There will be benches along the path, and there will be plantings of native shrubs. There'll be meadow grass planted, as shown on the original plan, just to make a just very pleasant experience on the library property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No? All right. At this point then, I think it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Excuse me,
So,
excuse me.
yes,
Hi. I know I'm getting emails from people that are trying to get on, but they're not able to get onto the meeting. I don't know what's going on, but I
okay. So you're on mute now.
oh,
Um,
I'm sorry. Did you just hear what I said?
We heard that you said that people are sending you
Yeah.
emails that want to get onto the public hearing. Do you happen to know if those people are aware of the change in the project?
No, I'm not. But
Mhm.
hold on.
Kim, I do have a hand up from Joe Regulate.
Okay. So we're going to recognize Joe. We hope you can, we gave you a lot of time at the last one, Joe, so I hope you can keep it briefer than last time. Go ahead.
Okay, I just moved him over.
You're on mute. Joe, you're on mute.
Come on, Joe, get with it. You're so handicapped.
Joe,
Hello?
you're on mute. Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, I am sorry. My technical expertise is, I'm at the bottom of the barrel. I'm just curious. I support what Carolyn just said. In terms of the panels being put on hold, is that a temporary hold or is that sort of a permanent hold?
I don't know.
Somewhere in between.
Well, because I had actually, earlier when the issue of correspondence was raised, I had forwarded to the planning board a fairly lengthy analysis of the solar panels and reasons why the planning board should be against that. And when the correspondence, when Cheryl discussed correspondence today, that wasn't mentioned. So I'm curious. I thought that correspondence was moot because I assumed that the solar portion of the application had been withdrawn, but if it's only on hold, then the communication.
Sorry, Joe, this is Tim Rassick. I'm on the board of the library as well. So we're removing the solar portion of the project. If we decide to proceed with solar in the future, we would come back to the planning board for approval. So at this time, we're just seeking approval for the walking path, and that is all that's on the table.
So if they come back, Joe, in other words, as I'm sure you know, if they come back to us, they'll have to resubmit a proposal. We'll go through this whole process.
That would open up
at the
again.
Public hearing. Exactly.
All right, it looks like Tim beat me from the train to his desktop. Yeah, we get off together. Okay, that was all. And again, I appreciate the board's consideration. I know this took a little while and it came a little late in the day, but I believe this was the right decision and I thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any more hands up, Cheryl?
Just let me take a quick look. No.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any either. So at this point, given that there are no more speakers, we need a motion to close the public hearing. Anybody want to make that motion? Neil, Toman, and Laura, first and second. And then, since we did ask some board questions, but I'd like to have Ron speak about what the next steps are for this project.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you've got a technical memorandum from my office. as has been discussed, the solar array is now no longer part of the application. Seeker still remains to be accomplished. To assist the board, we had provided you with a Part 2 EAF for your consideration. No need for you to take action on that tonight, but it's a matter to be sure that that's addressed prior to any consideration of action on the application itself. There are some minor technical things to be addressed, but if the board is so disposed, you may be in a position to consider receiving resolutions for action at the next meeting.
Okay. So since we have, the EAF Part 2 here, the draft, does anyone have an objection to, has everyone looked at it? Anybody have any questions? No? Nobody? So I guess I have one question, which is item 7B, Ron. It's impact on plants and animals. And 7B says the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. So and it's checked no or small impact may occur. So I'm just wondering why there's a check there, like what that relates to.
Again, as you'll likely recall, the responses to Part 2 are all based on information provided within the EAF Part 1. In the development of the Part 1, they obtained information from DEC to understand that it could, the general area of the library could contain sites for northern long-eared bats and eagle nesting. So it's within a five-mile corridor. So since it was identified in Part 1, it's been flagged in Part 2. However, it's recognized that there's no vegetation that's to be removed, with the exception of just the physical disturbance to put in the path. So I considered that to be no or minor impact.
Okay. Yeah, I just, in case anybody had any questions about that, I just wanted to bring that up. Everything else to me looks pretty straightforward. Does anybody else have anything to say about the EAF Part 2? No. Okay, so the next step I think would be to entertain a motion to have Ron prepare resolutions, which we would vote on at the next meeting. So if someone would like to make a motion, Neil, Heidi, and that should we be inclusive and have it be both kinds of resolution? So we make one vote. Is that cool, Adam?
Well, yeah, I mean, are we going to be first closing the public hearing?
We
That's
did
been
close the
done.
public hearing.
We already did that, I think.
That's been
Yeah,
done.
we did that.
Okay, I apologize for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, we took a motion. I guess we didn't vote. So let's go back. We had a motion. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. So so we have a motion, a first motion to prepare the resolutions, both of them, and a second. So that's appropriate, right, Adam? We can do it in one motion.
Yes, it could be a motion to direct Mr. Gaynor to prepare a seeker resolution and an approval resolution for consideration at next month's meeting.
Great. So we have a first and a second for that. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. So that concludes everything for the Desmond Fish Library for tonight. And I'll turn the meeting back over to Neil.
Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, Riverview, sorry, Mark Cohn next. Okay, Mr. Cohn, and your team, I believe tonight is about the resolution of the site plan. Is that correct, Ron?
That's correct.
Okay. I'd like to not just stand on ceremony. I think I'd like to just take a motion to approve the resolution related to the Conn property that Ron circulated a couple of days ago. We can add discussion after we pass the motion, or have a motion. Seconded, you may have a motion for that, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Kim. A second, please. Thank you, Laura. Okay, any discussion about the resolution for the Conn property? Anything, anybody? Okay, then may I have take a vote then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Good. Opposed? Abstentions? Best of luck, Mr. Cohen. It looks like a lovely piece of land, and as I've driven by the last few days, it looks like you've done a nice job with the stonework and the landscaping. So best of luck. Good luck. Okay. That's always nice. Come to a nice conclusion. Well done, board. Okay, Riverview Industries, 3012 Route 9. I don't know if the applicant has anything to say tonight to start us off. I don't actually know the name of the applicant. Maybe it's this Mr. Rocheville.
Is Glenn on?
I don't see Glenn.
I don't see him either.
And
Is there a
nobody
hand
from
up for
Beatty and Watson?
Jason?
Yeah, Jason's there. That's
We moved
There's a hand
Jason.
up.
Okay, I'll move him.
Hey, Jason.
Okay, on? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, we submitted to the DOT as you received the letter and the plan that we submitted to the DOT was the most recent submission for the part one of the DOT application. I believe we are cleared with Max and the Conservation Board regarding the wetland permit. I believe I wanted to get some clarification on what's required from the planning board as far as the seeker determination goes, so that we can get the so that the Conservation Board can issue their permit, because I believe they're ready to issue the permit with the seeker determination, and I don't know if that can come now, or you need more information before that can be done. It's kind of like I don't know if there's like a catch-22 involved, Ron.
Yeah, no, if I can speak to that.
Yeah.
The board at the last meeting understood that the environmental board was essentially done with their review. They've accepted the mitigation that you've got on the latest plans. But the board had requested that I file with them a EAF Part 2, which the board now has in hand for their review. That should assist them in determining whether they're now, they've completed their environmental review and they can move forward with a seeker declaration.
Heidi, go ahead, please.
Ron, I have one question about the EAF, which is with respect to the impact on land.
Yeah.
And I just may not be fully understanding how this works, but seems like all the boxes that are checked are no, but the overall impact is yes. Just trying to understand why that would be.
Well, again, I think the board understands you start by answering the question that's raised. And if there's a yes to be considered, then you go into the individual categories. So certainly there's an impact on land with their site activities. And then we went through the various subcategories and identified them. And as I've said, the board had significant concerns, as did this Conservation Board, with the current status of the site. And they've offered significant mitigation to address those concerns and pull back the the impacts that the board originally saw in their prior site visits.
Okay,
So given the mitigation that's now on the table, I've identified the impacts as no or small.
okay, okay. So it's just yes, as in there's going to be impacts, but they're mitigated. Therefore,
Exactly,
the answers are no.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
That's
So we
correct.
had this interesting debate, Heidi, in last week's special meeting where Steve Gaba had given an alternative viewpoint, which was the answer to the super question
Yeah,
was the
I remember.
summation of the sub questions. But in
Yeah,
fact, if you, I think Jan, the applicant's,
yeah.
what is actually correct, that you do answer the major question and then answer the sub questions based on it.
Right.
So so that's the way the form is supposed to be run, as
Okay.
the instructions of the form
Got it.
state. So,
Okay, got it,
but I think where we're going, and Heidi started going there, so I just want to back up to Ron, and then we'll go back to the EF part 2. So Ron, my sense is where we are is this is the time to start discussing the part 2 as a board, and then to have a public hearing subsequently. So do you want to give us some wisdom where we are?
Well, that's exactly right. The board was reluctant to move forward in the scheduling of the public hearing until you had gotten more comfortable with the issue of the environmental impacts and requested that a part 2 be prepared, and that's why it's in front of you tonight. If you're satisfied with the part 2, again, there's no need to take an action tonight, but if it satisfies the board, you may now be in a position to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting.
All right, good. So I think this may be an opportune moment to discuss. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I have a bunch of questions because I held them over from last month.
Good.
But I was just looking at something where Neil Toman was just texting to say he lost his feed. So I was just wondering where that was. That was what I was looking up to see.
No, totally understand. Hopefully we can get him back. And we don't have Peter this evening as well. But I think this is an opportune point to just start discussing the part 2. Because in our conversations leading up to it, clearly there were conversations about traffic flow. Clearly we had concerns about the land itself, as Heidi said, and it's the challenges related to the past, maybe leakages and such. And we're fortunate to have the Conservation Board opining and giving clear mitigations, but it's our responsibility as lead to take a look at this part 2. So let's start a conversation about that. Ron has started. I'll take any questions. We don't need to be as formal as we did with. Yes, Laura, please. Floor is yours.
So can I just talk about process for a second? Because so I had asked for the EAF part 1 because I know that the EAF part 1 was submitted, and I don't know if that was prior to the environmental board or not. But now that we have a resolution or some sort of mitigation plan from the from the environmental board, I'm not quite sure if some of the answers or the way that the part 1 has been answered addresses some of those issues. So I feel like we need to go back, or now that we know what the mitigation plan is, re-review the part 1 based upon the mitigation plan to then address the part 2, because you can't answer any of or ask any questions on the part 2 because the part 2 is related to the part 1. So sorry to sound like a
No, we have the part 1. It was in our
Right.
package. So there's no question. If you want to ask questions on the part 1, again, as we know in our process, the part 2 is our document. The part
Right.
1 is their document. The part 1 was given to us physically, and Ron emailed us electronically the part 2. So I'm happy to take any questions in any order or comments about the part 1. That's perfectly fine, Laura.
Okay.
Laura, do you want the floor?
No,
Specific items?
I'll hand it off to Kim and I'll get back.
Okay. Kim, floor is back to you.
I was going to say exactly the same sort of thing. So I'm glad you did that. So my first question tonight is, what about the EAF part 1 has changed based on the negotiations with the Conservation Board?
Frankly, I have not gone back to the EAF part 1. That gets filed as part of the original application. That serves the basis for the board's initial review, and it obviously was part of the application package that the Conservation Board reviewed in concert with the site plans, which have gone through numerous iterations to get to this point today. If you wish to go back to part one, we could.
Well, I'm just, because, the part one gets submitted, but then the conservation board took a big look. So maybe Jason can tell us. So for example, all we know so far about the approvals from the conservation board have to do with the oil separator, but the conservation board wanted a whole bunch of different things, including a layout and stuff like that. So I'd just like to know, why only the oil, if there's more coming from the conservation board related, that kind of thing. So maybe Jason has an answer for that.
I'm sorry. Was a short EAF submitted, or was it a full EAF?
It was a full EAF.
Okay. And what exactly, what question on the part one is?
Okay, so on page 3 in EAF part 1, it said that it asks, is this permitted by special or conditional use permit? And the answer to that is yes. And I would like to be reminded of why it's a special, which one it is and why it is that and how that works. Are we giving them a special use permit? Is there one in place already? Is it a conditional use permit?
Well, this was a permit for all right. Well, we'll have to revisit the part one, I guess. I don't have the part one in front of me.
Okay. Maybe you can still answer some of these questions.
Sure.
So on page 10, I guess it's a question really for Ron. So it's talking about potential contamination and the history of the potential contamination. I'd like to know what the threshold is for that, given that there's been truck storage and machine storage there. I'd just like to know what threshold has to be hit in order for contamination to be a consideration.
Yeah, it's got to be a known or identified concerns. I mean, there's been various applications that the board has raised concerns over potential contamination. This clearly could be one site. And the board identifies mitigation that may be appropriate when the contamination is not apparent or it's not subject of any spill remediation through the state. And you've done that elsewhere. So it's very possible the board may wish to see some protection beneath vehicles that are at the site, but that would be a condition mitigation if you deem it appropriate to identify it in any action you take. But it's not a known spill condition.
How would we know? Would somebody have had to have reported one?
Yeah, there'd be a record and it would be flagged when they accomplish their initial EAF part 1 review, which actually goes through the state. That would be flagged by DEC when they prepare the part 1.
And if nobody ever reported one, because those trucks have been out there for years, like if there is that, what I'm asking is, how many trucks do you have to have out there in order for a spill to be significant?
It's really based on the quantity of a spill.
To 5 gallons.
That's right.
Of
product.
Yeah.
5 gallons.
And that's reportable. But again, you can take immediate immediate action to mitigate. So it would get reported.
There's other thresholds for reporting and
right
and response time.
Okay. So there's no way so unless somebody else had already reported it, we're not discovering anything here is really, I guess, what I'm asking. Yeah.
Right. And both this board has had multiple visits. Conservation board has likewise been on site. And I don't know that anyone has identified clear issues of concern that warranted that environmental testing to begin with.
Okay.
But you would have concerns over the storage of vehicles.
Okay. So that's just something, if we could make a note of that as something that
Right.
we might have concern about.
Correct.
Okay, so I have questions about, I look back through the site plan application package because we were given that this week, and I had questions last month about the documents that were submitted, like the erosion control plan, and the site plan. I don't know if this is the moment when to ask those questions, Neil, since we're talking about the
Well,
EAF.
Well, I mean, look, I think it'd be better to have us identify where in the EAF you're raising the issues about, so we can be more helpful to Jason. I'm also happy because Jason, I think, is feeling a little, my guess is, Jason, you were pinch hitting for Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn is out of town for the.
Yeah, no, I understand. So I'm also happy because there's no reason to create pain for Jason, especially since he doesn't even have the damn paperwork in front of him. So I also think maybe it's more valuable, and your client may not appreciate this, Jason, but maybe it's best for everyone that we have this when either Glenn is here or you're better prepared.
Sure.
And that's not, I'm not trying to be insulting in any way. I just don't think we're gonna keep saying some stuff. Now, if the board would like to share its views and then repeat it again next time, so again, Jason can do more with it. But I think at this point, it's more of us talking and Jason listening than us being able to go back and forth.
So I'm happy to read my questions into the record so that Jason can
Okay,
take them to
that's
Glenn,
great.
and
Yeah,
then
we'll
Glenn can answer them next time.
I think
Yeah?
that's fine.
That's
I think
great.
Okay, cool.
Let's do that, and then we will not schedule a public hearing this evening because I'd like to actually have a discussion about the EF 1 and 2 when we next return. Kim, go ahead, continue your comment.
Okay, so on the erosion control plan, under number 3, fertilizer, I'd like to know where the covered, it says there's going to be a covered shed for fertilizer storage. I'd like to know where that is. It isn't on the erosion control plan. And I'd like to know where the temporary material storage trailer is. And I assume you'll probably watch this video again and take notes then, so I'll keep going. Number 5, spill prevention. It says oils and chemicals will be in tightly capped containers. I'd like to know where those are stored. And I'd like to know if that storage is 100 feet from wet areas or the stream. Is it okay to store that in the wetland buffer, yes or no? As far as the site plan goes, there's a dedicated parking space for storage of new parts and a dedicated parking space for storage of used parts and a dumpster for scrap metal storage. I'd like to know if these are open to the air or if they're covered. I'm interested in what the screening will be. It says blue spruce. And I'd like to know if there's any more. Pursuant to that, I'd like to know about the landscaping in front, because one of the plans I was looking at tonight seemed like all there was in front was riprap, and that's not really landscaping. On the planting plan in the future, if you could add to the legend the trees that have been marked so we know what they are. And then on the site plan application package on page 4, it says that no setbacks are required, and I'm wondering if that is because there's no structure, there's no building, but whether I'd like to know if there's a setback requirement for storage.
Right.
Okay. And then as a general question to the board, like one of the things I noticed is in your application to the DOT, there was a statement that there would only be 4 or 5 trucks crossing Route 9 a day and that it wouldn't be during rush hour. But I've been driving there during rush hour and seen an accident right in front of the place. And so I'm wondering, as a board, as we start talking about Route 9 and trucks and things like that, if we should, as a rule, ask for site accident data related to trucks in front of whatever, whatever chain, whatever property has applied to us. Because there are accidents on Route 9, and that is it for me.
Okay. When you say in front of, is there like a distance, like are you talking about like a quarter mile or?
Oh, I don't know.
100
yards.
yards?
What do you think? What would you consider relevant?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I mean, there's, when you're traveling along the road, there's curves and different side obstructions. I mean, I would say I would say within the sight distance of, I would say within the sight distance of the entrance would be reasonable. Cause it's out, if it's outside the sight distance, it's like, or what the required sight distance would be.
Mhm. What do you think, Ron?
Oh, no, that's a legitimate thing. I mean, you're talking numbers of 500 feet or more. If he looked in the range of 750 feet or so, he clearly encompassed anything that might be impacted by their activities back and forth.
So anyway, just as a benchmark, because we're just talking about so much traffic these days. Okay, that's it for me.
Who else?
Kim, if I could go back for a second, Kim, just, you would raise the initial issue of the, whether it's a conditional site plan or a special use. And we have to remember that this is a parking, a site that's used for parking. Parking is a permitted accessory use on an adjacent parcel to an active use. So the garage is across the street, but he's permitted to have this accessory parking. And that drives the need for the site plan approval, but it's only site plan.
So, but it says it's permitted by special or conditional use permit. So is it the conditional use permit that they have there? Is that what that means?
No, I don't, I think he's just trying to flag the idea that he requires site plan approval.
Okay,
There's no special permit needed, and I don't think there's been prior approval to the site.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Heidi, go ahead, please.
Well, so if anybody else has comments, I don't want to take up more time, but I wanted to follow up on what Kim was saying. So is there anyone else who, I don't
Heidi,
want
the floor is yours.
Okay. So I think it's fair to say that this site was a complete eyesore. When we visited it, and it was in violation. And as a result, I think that there should be, I would really appreciate to have an additional visit to the site with Jason or Glenn or somebody who could walk us through how it's going to be fixed and what's going to happen, where things are going to be, because I find it really hard to picture how this is going to be fixed. Just looking at the site, it's a standout eyesore, in my opinion. It's not like it's the only one on 9, but it's really uniquely, I think, it jumps out. And since it was already in violation, I think it would make a lot of sense to see how it's going to get fixed. And physically, like to go through the site again and see how this is going to get fixed to look good, better, and where everything's going to go, and how the violation is going to be remedied. Because it's a different situation than the typical one where we're approaching an applicant that isn't already in violation. That's my feeling. Like there should be some recognition of that, and the fact that there should be a little bit more involved in terms of just convincing us that this is going to be remedied.
So I hear your point, Heidi. I can't remember when we visited. It was 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I can't remember.
It was in December 2020.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
December.
It looked awful.
Didn't we go twice? I think we went twice.
Hold on, one at a time. We have visited twice. We once visited before COVID, and we once visited, I don't believe Heidi and Laura were on the board yet. And we did have a visit subsequently in December, as my colleagues recall. So I'm not opposed to the notion of going again, but I don't know what we're going to accomplish. I don't think the plan has changed, Ron, since last, in terms of where the parking space are going, where the entrance is. Is it substantially the same plan?
Right, for the most part, and the board should remember that the applicant was in violation, but only because he was using a site without planning board approval. Any commercial activity in town requires site plan approval. And so he was given a notice of violation by the town CEO to address that. And for that reason, he initiated the site plan application. Now, given that the site is or was in poor shape, and so he's gone through the effort of preparing site plans to attempt to better define and limit what activities can occur on the site. He's also identified stormwater improvements, landscaping improvements, and water quality improvements relative to the oil water separator that the Conservation Board insisted on. So if you went through a site visit, you might better appreciate what the limits will be. They're certainly tighter than where they have been parking in the past. They have been pulled back from the wetlands. They're still adjacent to it, but they have made the commitments to minimize those activities. And I don't mean to be an advocate for the applicant. I just merely want the board to understand what the application entails.
It would be atypical for us to revisit a site where there hasn't been a substantial change in the site plan application if the only thing is that time has elapsed. And I'm not blaming the applicant or ourselves, that it's been 6 months since May or December. So I think maybe a more, I would never put myself in Solomon's shoes, but a more, a midpoint may be that for those who would like to attend a walkthrough can do it. I don't know if I want to mandate, go ahead, Laura.
To just jump on what Ron was saying and what Heidi's saying. So I guess the only benefit would be is if we were to go to the site and the new proposed changes were staked, right? So the last time we went, we saw the existing site, we saw what was there. There was a lot of finger pointing, you know, this is where this is going to be. And, you know, so again, if it was staked so that we could then understand how the new design or the new work is going to be mitigated and pulled in, that would probably be worth seeing for those who are going to go to see it. Just my suggestion.
Sorry, my daughter was calling me. Sorry, life intrudes, which is why it's always hard to do Zoom. So I hear your point, Laura, and it's a good one. And what I don't want to do is create a precedent that we're doing multiple site visits for the same application because we didn't get enough in the first time, if you know what I mean. And I'm trying, I just don't want to put undue burdens. Again, there's the balance on property rights and community rights and diligence. So I'm happy to gauge the sentiment of the board to see if others feel the need. I don't know if Jason will feel comfortable signing up to do this.
Well, I mean, if I could just say one thing regarding the staking, I don't want to make it worse, but it's so thick with stuff. I don't know if you'd be able to really see. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that a staking would, if you would be able to step back and say, you know, you might be able to walk around some trailers and find a stake here and then walk around a trailer and find another stake. But I don't know if you're going to get the big picture standing back, surveying the property. I don't think a staking is going to, I mean, in most situations, I would think that it would help, but I don't know if it's really going to help. That's all. I mean, I don't know that it would help, but.
Well, we're getting a little off track here, so let me just back us up a drop. We can come back to this topic. So I'm going to back up where we are. We've agreed that the applicant does not have sufficient material in front of them to have a back and forth. So we're going to raise our EAF parts 1 and 2 questions, and then we'd pick it up again in the next meeting. And we then started moving into, I'd like to go a site plan redux or double redux or whatever, thrice. And I'm happy to engage that, but I'd like to back up, finish the conversation about the EAF, and then we can debate and discuss the topic of whether we want a 3rd site visit. So that's okay. Can we just finish the EAF point? Because I think we're going to get lost in a debate and not. So does anyone have any more questions around the EAF parts 1 or 2? Laura, please.
Okay, so just a couple of questions. So on the part 2, on the first, on 1, impact on land, we don't, did the environmental, I'm assuming the environmental board didn't take any samples, so we don't actually know if the existing soil there is contaminated.
No, but typically I don't think that would be done unless you had evidence to support the need for testing.
And we can't request it, meaning like, because I know that there's going to be a whole regrading, there's, impervious, like, soils that are being put down. So like, my question is, does it not make sense that we would want to remove anything that if it's contaminated before anything new that gets put down? And if so, then shouldn't we test it to then find out? Or we're not allowed to ask that unless the owner goes ahead and does it themselves?
I defer to the attorney, but I would think you'd have to have some clear justification to pursue it. As I said, the planning board has been there multiple times. Conservation board has been on site as well. And to my knowledge, they haven't identified the concern. Everybody recognizes the potential, but I don't think they've identified any historical concern that warranted testing. But maybe the attorney has an opinion.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I could look into it, but without a basis to insist on a test other than, hey, it might be contaminated, so therefore we should test it. I'm not certain that would be sufficient justification. But I could look into that further. And obviously, we're going to be discussing this again at the next meeting. But I certainly don't have a definitive answer right now.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Just only because the last time we went there, there were trucks that were there and it, there looked like motor oil, like on the surface, because you can see the coloration in the ponding. So just wanted to put it out there. The other thing too is that I don't actually remember if there was a stormwater plan for the new parking lot area. And just due to the nature of the adjacency of the wetlands, I'm wondering if there needs to be some sort of stormwater mitigation. That's just a question. And then just going back to the traffic. So impact on transportation on the EAF, even though it says yes, the question is that on part 13C, it says the proposed action will degrade existing transit access. And the answer is no or small. I actually don't know what the answer to this is, because if the trucks are moving from the parking lot across Route 9, I think we discussed this. How does that happen? I think the owner at one point proposed that there were flagmen that actually stop traffic so that they can move their vehicles from one side to the other in order for them to move that. I think that actually degrades existing transit access, but that's just me. And also in the last 2 days, because I actually do frequent that road, there have been trucks parked on Route 9 on the business side along Route 9 in parallel. So there was a truck trying to go across, and then there are 3 tractor trailers parked alongside. So, I'm not exactly sure where their boundaries are. And I don't know how we manage that or figure out what that impact is, but I'm just putting it out there. And then the other thing is that I'm going to assume by code they're required to have a lighting plan. I don't think we've seen a lighting plan for this. And just wanting to see that because I do know that there's residential up above the ridge above them. So I think we should look at that before we make any determination on that. That's it for me.
Very, very good points, Laura. Thank you for those, especially the lighting one. I think that's a part that it says no in the EAF. And one would assume there is some lighting potentially. All right, Neil or Dennis, comments? No, Neil, Dennis?
I'm fine.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So look, I have a couple of points, but I think Laura summed up most of my concerns. Let me just, though, before I share them, the reason why we so heavily engaged the Conservation Board is precisely because of the issues related to the quality of the site, the proximity of the wetlands, and the observations that Laura and Heidi had that any reasonable person would instantly notice about the trucks and the leakage or potential leakage given the color separation, etc. So for me, Cheryl, I'd like your help in getting Max Garfinkel to join us for our next meeting, because in my estimation, the reason why they've been so heavily involved is because their attention to these issues and their approval or support for mitigations were intentionally made so we would be comfortable or much more comfortable. So for example, catching all this liquid going forward was part of what they were supposed to look at and create a plan to do. So I would like to invite Max to join us at our next meeting, because I think this is a particularly important topic for this. I am cognizant that this EAF Part 2 is more difficult because this is an existing facility. Typically, we don't do these for existing. So for example, when we talk about the traffic, Laura, to your point, I keep reading it over and over again because it's like, will this increase? Well, what's the increase based upon what existed before they were doing this, and not approved to be here, or is it from the point now? So it's a little difficult. I do think the two issues, the major issue of leakage and impact on the wetlands, which can affect groundwater, which is obviously item number 4, I believe, 4. And I know Ron put on letter F that it's a no or small impact on the bulk storage or the effect on the water supply. But the questions themselves, I'm not struggling with. What I'm questioning is the general impact on the groundwater. And the second, well, I don't think this degrades transit. I do think Laura's point, which is still a good one, about traffic going across the road. And we also discussed the notion of, similar to our very extensive discussion of CRS, where is the appropriate ingress? Can you come into this thing from both directions? Do we want to have some rules? Because that's a tight area. These are big trucks. And so again, that's not an EAF. There's not a perfect check mark for that one, but it is definitely a consideration. And so I think we want to have clarity on those plans. So Jason, and I think I don't think we have that in front of us, nor do I want to put you on the spot, but I also really want Cheryl Max to come and talk to us. If Ron, you're okay with that as well.
Sure.
Sure.
I'll reach for him immediately.
Thank you, sir. Jason, go ahead.
Regarding the leakage in the soil and all the contamination, it's my understanding that was heavily considered both by the Conservation Board, both the existing condition and the proposed condition, with regard to all the requirements for curbing and the hard surfaces and the oil water separator. And I don't believe that it's, from what I remember, that was heavily considered, and it was.
Yeah, Jason, I'm totally acknowledging that point, which is why I think having Max talk to this board will be valuable, because as you can tell, 3.5, I'll give myself a half point on this one. Kim, Heidi, and Laura all are raising really important points. And despite the fact that the Wetlands Commission, the Conservation Board has effectively blessed the project, as far as I can tell, they're not feeling comfortable yet. So we got to get all comfortable with this thing. And I think Max seems like he'll have the keys to the castle on that one.
Okay.
So what you said, I think, is exactly right about what's transpired, but I think we got to get ourselves up. I'm remiss. Our ex officio board member has reminded me about, do we feel there's a need for a traffic study here? Again, it's sort of an interesting dilemma, because it's existing use as opposed to new use. So, but I wonder, is that something this board feels is a needed input to the EAF Part 2, given the conversation? I don't know if we have that data.
Are you asking the lawyer, Neil?
No, I'm asking us.
Okay. I think we should do a traffic study, definitely. And, you know, I don't know whether we should wait for the public hearing for that. Because what happened with CRS, for example, is, well, I think that they did some sort, John Canning did some kind of maybe preliminary traffic study. And then we heard from residents, their concerns about exiting their homes onto the part of Route 9 near the side of CRS. At this point, I don't believe we have that type of testimony. So we don't have those facts before us at this point. So I'm not sure whether, you know, this is the moment when we would request a traffic study. I guess just as a matter of common sense, it seems to make sense that this is in the, you know, we all drive this stretch of the highway and know that it's tricky. But I don't know if we have the ability to request a traffic study without that type of evidence in the record.
Well, if we keep our mind on what we've been doing on just a week ago, this is an additional piece that may be part of a part 3 if we want to have additional data. I do believe if we need this input, I'd rather have it before a public hearing. I'd like to put the public hearing here at the back end of the EAF process, which is what we've been doing historically and what we are doing on our other major application that's en route. Kim, you wanted to say something?
So I guess my question, oh, I go off mute. I am, okay. So I guess my question would just be what the threshold is, right? You know, like, cause I don't think we're gonna require a traffic study of every single business on Route 9. But it would be nice to have some guidelines as to when, you know, a traffic study would be appropriate and when it's overkill. Because we are, you know, all of this costs money and it costs money to the applicant. And, you know, we could commission 1 million studies, but I'm not sure that that's entirely fair. So if Ron or Adam has any input on thresholds, that would be helpful.
Again, at the very least, at the genesis, you'd want to understand stopping site distances at the proposed point of entry. Similarly, as was touched on tonight, and I think was committed to by the applicant, you'd want to see accident data. And that would likely provide you with some basis to then say, I need further data, or it seems as though the site, they have safe access into and out of the site.
Okay, so I think that that argues for a traffic study to figure out those things that Ron mentioned.
If I could just say one thing with regard to the traffic study. And again, I don't mean to discredit any, I mean, I'm not, we're kind of like an uncharted territory with this use. I mean, I don't know if there's a defined use here that we could accurately.
We better have a defined use about this property.
I mean, it's storage of it's still. I mean, I don't know how, but I don't know how it's going to relate to the data that's available for developing traffic studies.
No, I spoke in very basic terms. I mean, let's go back to the beginning. The genesis of the application was the accessory use of parking on a site adjacent to the repair garage. That's a permitted accessory use. You're not going to find traffic generation for that accessory use, but we were saying understand available site distance compared to standards for the Route 9 corridor.
Oh, sure.
And also understand accident data that I think Kim had raised a few occasions. That gets the board started in understanding the potential concern.
Oh, well, the stopping site distance, we can certainly.
Right.
I was thinking more like trip generation.
Right. And
stopping site distance, we could certainly do. The intersection site distance we have with the most recent DOT application, and then the accident data we can file those records.
Yeah, but I think the other piece that everyone's trying to make sure they understand, and maybe it's already in one of the documents, is the number of trips per day in and out. I think that is part of part of the conversation, which is not a traffic study per se. Traffic study we've done, like our big concern with CRS was distance to braking when it's, 53-foot truck is coming out, and when you're coming over that hill, do you have enough time to brake? That was one of the big concerns. And then one of our conversations, which was not traffic per se, it was the volume of trucks coming in and out of the property. And so that's less a traffic study. You're not looking at the cars whizzing by. You're trying to tell us the volume of work that's happening. And that's, I think, the issue. Those are some of the issues. And I know, Jason, you're pinch hitting, and Glenn is well aware of this conversation stream we've had. So I think it's fine. I don't want you engaging in work you don't feel comfortable yet signing up for. But I think this is less about counting the cars whizzing by and more about getting us some facts about the property and the cars, the vehicle usage there. I think we have to be, as a board, I think, and what Kim said is, I think, a good caution, which is, I don't want to make blanket comments about a traffic study, whatever the heck that is. I'd like to ask targeted questions, which could be put under the rubric or the umbrella of traffic study, but there are certain questions that matter for certain applications. All right, so let's come back to Heidi's question, which is, because I think that's it on the EAF. I mentioned my question. So Heidi's asked for another site visit, and I shouldn't say another, but a site visit. We did one in December. One was done before Heidi and Laura joined the board, long before that. I'm open to democratic rule in this and who would like to do one. I also, after my training a few months ago, I learned that we don't have to notice it. So if we want to just do something where a subset of the board just goes out and looks at the thing, but not everyone, we can also do that too. Although I typically like to notice these things as a matter of course. So can I have a vote on straw poll on whether people would like to have a site visit? I know Heidi would like one. Laura, where are you on that? Would you like to have another look-see?
I don't necessarily need to know.
Okay. Kim, would you like another look-see?
I drive by there every day.
Okay, she has one.
Many,
She'll have one
many
this
times. I had two today. I'll probably have two tomorrow.
Well, take some pictures for us. Neil, would you like to go
crash
visit
the
again?
car.
Oh, good point.
No, I'm fine. I don't need to go again. Thank you.
Dennis.
No, I'm fine also, Neil. The drawings, I think, indicate what they're planning on doing, so.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. So here's what I'd like to suggest, Jason, and you can talk to Glenn about this. At Heidi's and convenience, I'd like to offer, if you would offer her a visit. That does not trigger a board meeting. We've had 2 public visits to it. No one showed up. I suspect if we notice again, the public will again not show up. So besides Nick and Heidi's husband, who are members of the public, but I think they were more being just kind spouses than anything else. So I'd like to, if you and Glenn can work with
Glenn
Heidi
and I will
directly,
definitely.
you guys can figure out a visit. I'm in the same camp. I've been there twice already. I don't need it any more imprinted on my brain physically. I'd like to see it prettier, but that's a whole other topic.
But that's what I was trying to get at, Neil. I mean, Ron stated, quote, the site was in poor shape. I maybe because I've only been on the board for a year. This site, Ron's himself saying the site is was in poor shape.
Yeah.
How do I deal with that? Is it an aesthetic problem? Is it a basis for me to vote this project down? Because unless they can prove to me that this isn't going to be an eyesore, I don't feel in good conscience that I could support this application. How can I know that there's a lot of projects along 9 and they don't look as terrible as this one. This one looks terrible.
But they
Like,
haven't
how
done
do
the
we,
work yet.
that's what I'm trying to get wrap my brain around. How will this not look that ugly?
But I feel like this is a bit of a Sinadoki here. Like we gotta see, they can't do the work before we approve the work. I think they have cleaned it up materially. It is certainly not the finished product, but it's not going to be the finished product till it's finished. So I think again, the members, there's no problem with you going to visit it. I think it sounds like we can get you a visit without any, at your convenience. The other board members do not feel and I think they've got a plan. The problem I think you're facing and we're facing is whether you feel comfortable that the applicant will actually execute on the plan that is in front, which is sort of the whole problem with a someone that's been violated. We've
Yeah.
done this a couple of times before at ESP. I think we had a long discussion where we felt like, you know what, the place doesn't look so great. How do we trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? And so there are some conversations about bonding. I feel like we had this with Rodak. Been on the board too long, you and me, Kim. Like, we get too many names in the memory bank here. So the sentiment you're raising, Heidi, is not that they pretty up the thing before they do the work. I think you're worrying about, rightfully, will they do the thing they say they're going to do?
Yeah, I have a pretty good memory, and if they walk me through the site and show me what they plan to do, where they plan to do it, that would help me a lot. So if that's possible, I would love to do it.
You got it.
Yeah,
I think Jason's already agreed to it. So
Yeah,
you guys just
that'd be
coordinate.
excellent.
It's right down the road.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay. I'll be in
Okay.
touch with you.
Okay.
All right, good. I think that's it for tonight's business on Riverview. It's such a great, the name, I'm sorry, every time I see Riverview, I think it's, the name doesn't equate to the project. So, yeah, that's back to Heidi's point. So anything else, anyone? Okay, so Jason, next time we're gonna do a more thorough EAF review with Glenn in here. You have the questions. Cheryl, you're gonna get us Max as much as we can. Ron's gonna call it. Well, between you and Ron, we'll figure out how to get Max here. I think we're done on this topic. Any last comments? Oh, and you've got the traffic points made as well. Good. All right. We'll move on to our final application for tonight, the flag application. I'm going to recuse myself as I am a very immediate neighbor of the property. And I turn the keys over to my namesake, Neil Toman.
Thanks, Neil. I look at every time the Riverview application comes up, I think, well, what's Jimmy Eli doing? What's going on down there? Same thing, Riverview. Do we have a representative for the applicant? Jason, is that you? Oh, we have Christopher. Okay.
Yeah, Christopher.
And
David Spence and
Yeah.
Lee Rockaville.
so let me go here. So we got Mr. Flagg, and who else
Yes.
is here?
David Spence is our architect, and
Okay,
Harry Roqueville is our engineer
very
for
good.
the septic and stormwater.
Okay, now you're starting to show up. Great, David and Harry, thanks for coming. So we're picking up this application again, and I watched your zoning board meeting with this, and I mean, talk about grabbing victory from the jaws of defeat. I have to say, if there was a highlight reel for the ZBA, you certainly would be making an appearance. So Rod, do you want to, or do you want to catch us, or I'm sorry, either Christopher, do you want to catch us up on how it went with the zoning board, and tell what first of all, why were what were the issues in front of the zoning board?
Maybe David can speak, really specific to some of it. I think some of it seemed to be a little off topic, respectfully. There was a lot of conversation about Airbnb and things that my wife Heidi and I haven't contemplated at all. So it was perplexing in that respect. But I think the zoning board was trying to wrap their head around an 1810 house that was renovated in 1873 and was built next to the old Albany Post Road for obvious purposes. That's what they did in those days. So it's thus non-conforming. And I think David, maybe you have some other things that they were noodling over, but I know the Airbnb thing seemed to come up on a number of occasions, and so I think I helped allay fears and help them understand that my kids are no longer 8 and 10 years old, and they're 21 and 19 years old, and the family's grown up, I guess, over the years. So, and Heidi and I are excited about expanding the property with an addition.
Mm-hmm. David, you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think part of our solution to solving this design was we wanted to respect the original character of the house, the roof lines, the massing. Over time, it's had, several additions. The house sort of is a radiating cluster of forms that grow out from the middle. There's wraparound porches, ridge lines that sort of go out in all different directions. So when Heidi and Chris came to us to have this family room addition, you know, a lot of times people want a family room with a bedroom above, and then, but they also were looking for a garage or, you know, a garden storage and such. So our solution was sort of a barn-like structure, but we wanted to keep it as an addition to the home without really messing with the roof lines and the massing of the original house. So so by all definitions, it is considered an addition to the house, and even your building code official calls it an addition. But I think the zoning folks just were trying to get their head wrapped around that, because we also wanted to you know, sort of create this sort of rural barn structure alongside the house. And we use the wraparound porch elements to continue as a loggia or pergola to connect the two masses, thus making them one home. And as Chris said, I think there was concern that you know, this was looking to be a setup for an Airbnb, and of course that was never ever in any conversations or in the intent. So I think the struggle on our end was just trying to not let that distract from the true review of what the project was. And there was a couple non-conforming situations with the house over the front yard setback and the size of the lot. Otherwise, other than that, it met all the requirements. So now we're here in our, you know, next phase in front of the planning board, and we use Mr. Gaynor's letter as our template to address a lot of the issues that you would be looking for.
Thank you, David. And so I think we definitely have on the table these two issues that we've been talking about this application for a while, and they have, I think we found consistently that there has been concern about the Airbnb angle, and also this the addition versus building a separate single family home. And the way it's written is, if you connect it by a breezeway, it becomes a very different conversation. I tell you what, thank you for your comments. I'm going to go to Ron and Adam in a second, but I just wanted to get it out there that the zoning board decision is not binding on us. So I think you can anticipate more questions about Airbnb and this addition question as we're moving forward. And I've got, so I think the way to maybe run through this is, why don't we we'll go to Ron, we'll go to Adam, we'll go to the board members for their concerns, and then I've got a couple points that I want to bring up about our next steps. So Ron, or if assuming sure, Ron, you want to pick this up and have at it?
Okay. I think as the board understands, the matter is before you before site plan approval, and it triggers a requirement for site plan just based on the overall size of the existing dwelling and the addition planned. The board's been to the site previously. As the applicant indicates, the zoning board of appeals has now granted the necessary variances. So the applicant has now come back before you to conclude the planning board review process. When the project was first before you, recognizing the current seeker regulations, it qualified as a type 2 action since it's only in addition to an existing single family structure. So it's deemed by the state regulation as a type 2 action. You classified it as such at the initial meeting, and so that concluded your required environmental review. The matters before the board really relate to the ability of the sanitary system to service the project. We have not seen any correspondence yet with Putnam County Department of Health, but that will require some review and some written confirmation from county to verify that the system is either adequate in place or requires expansion to service the additional 1-bedroom that's proposed. I think the board is also aware that there's a conservation easement across the property. And the easement is held by HHLT. Actually, a representative of HHLT was with the board at your site visit. But at the end of the day, we're going to require some written confirmation that the proposed addition conforms with all requirements that are contained in that conservation easement. And then one last item of note is it's a residential site plan application. It's deemed a minor project, which you classified it as previously. A public hearing is discretionary for minor projects. So that's another matter that you'll want to make a decision on to determine if a public hearing will be held.
Thanks, Ron. So we're still waiting on some feedback from the Board of Health and Hudson Highlands Land Trust.
That's correct. That's
Any
correct.
idea, has anybody got any feel for where we are with these two?
Well, I can tell you that, again, back at the onset of the application, the planning board did issue correspondence to the Department of Health to make them aware of it and to seek their guidance. But it's really a matter for the applicant to formally submit documentation and sizing calculations for the existing system, which the Department of Health will then respond to. So it's in the applicant's hands to continue that process with the Department of Health.
And has that application been made yet, Ron? Or Chris?
I'll turn to the applicant, yeah.
David, has that application been submitted to the Putnam County Board of Health?
I believe, sorry, Harry, can you unmute?
Yes, Harry Rocheville with McCord Engineering for the record. We did soil testing with the Putnam County Department of Health about 2 to 3 weeks ago now. We confirmed that there was suitable soils on site for a separate septic system for the addition for a 2-bedroom design. We coordinated them also on the existing system, and neither them, the building department, or any previous septic maintenance companies had any records of the existing system. All we know is that it's south of the residence. So our proposal is to install a new system for the addition that's currently underway for design, and we're working on updating our site development plan that we submitted that had placeholders for septic system to include a code compliant septic system based on the soil testing that we did with Putnam County Health Department. And I've been coordinating with the health department. They don't see any concerns. So we should be getting that underway shortly and submitted to them.
And those documents are all in your hands now. And that's
Right.
the package that you have now.
Right, so the existing system is south of the existing building. That's under review for capacity?
No, we're leaving that as is for the existing residents, and we'll be installing a new 2-bedroom system for the addition itself. So there'll be 2 separate systems on the property now.
All right, help me out here. Where's the new system going then?
Do I have the ability to share my screen?
Please.
Point it out on the plan.
Please.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Just 1 second, we'll fix that.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I see it.
Okay. So this is the plan that you have in front of you that was submitted. You'll see here, we had a placeholder, approximate location of septic system dependent on soil testing. So it is to the southwest of the addition. It is up gradient, as there is really no down gradient spots on the property other than here where we will be proposing a detention system for the roof leaders of the proposed addition. So after we did the soil testing with the health department see my hand sketch here. We determine the size of the system that would be required. 5 rows of 50 linear feet of gravel trenches based on the soil testing for a 2-bedroom design. You'll also see here that the area of disturbance is much less than we had anticipated, about 2,000 square feet less than what was submitted on our preliminary plan. So as I said, 2-bedroom system to a 1,000-gallon septic tank with a pump chamber that will feed 5 rows of gravel trenches. And this has been discussed with the health department. We just haven't had the time to put it together and submit yet, but that'll be done shortly.
All right, so you're working on it, and so, and what's your elevation like? You got, what kind of pitch are we? To me, it looks like it's uphill.
It is uphill, so we'll be pumping to
The
it.
pump system you mentioned.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
What kind of vegetation is in the area of the sanitary? Is there much tree removals required?
We tried to avoid all trees within 10 feet of the system. If anything, maybe 1 tree needs to be removed, but it's mostly lawn right now.
All right, your plan should identify any tree removals. Just for the information.
We'll do. There's trace paper on top of here, so it's probably hard to see the trees. Sorry about that, but they will be on the formal plan. You'll see the trees here. The system is sort of lumped in the middle here, so maybe 1 to 2 trees that'll need to be removed, but they'll certainly be called out on the finished plan.
So as we understand it, then there has been no submittal yet to the Department of Health.
Correct. Just correspondence at this point.
And then why do you discuss a 2-bedroom design? The application materials have talked about a 1-bedroom addition.
The 2-bedroom was the minimum design that they would allow.
Thank you.
And that'll just, of course, provide extra capacity.
No, we just wanted that stated for the record.
Yep.
You got, and you have 100% default system.
Yep, reserve is showed here, dashed lines. Correct.
That's that. Okay, all right. So that's
This,
that angle.
the
going down there.
contour, the contours sort of bend around, so these are parallel with the contours, and these are as well.
Okay, so you're working on it.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. So let's go. That's great. Thanks for the input. Let's go around the horn.
Neil, this is David here. In reference to the HHLT, they also have their package as well. As you know, they had given conceptual approval to the project and are waiting to do final approval on materials and such, of which they have a very similar package of what you have in your hand now.
What's your feedback from them, David? What you feeling like they okay? You get any feedback from them at all?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So in their initial letter, it says, in our review, we did not note anything in the provided plans that conceptually conflicts with the terms of the conservation easement. They just, when we got further along, they would just want to know what materials would be on the exterior and such for final review.
Okay. Adam, want to add anything?
No, from a legal perspective, it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The existing residence is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. It's non-conforming because it's not set back a sufficient distance from the central line of Albany Post Road. So they got a special permit to increase the floor area, the existing floor area with the addition, as well as a variance for the percentage increase. And they're now just before this board for site plan. And in terms of next steps, if the board is inclined to schedule a site inspection, that would be fine and appropriate if the board wants to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to circle back to that. I've got some.
We already had one.
We already had one, but
okay.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go. I'm going to go by my screen for feedback from the board, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a couple of comments and see where we go from there. Heidi, you want to weigh in on this?
So I remember when we were at the site visit and Kim was showing me where there was some wetland vegetation. I'm just trying to make out where relative to the new septic system. I'm assuming since the septic system goes uphill, it's not in that area. But I'm just trying to double check to make sure it doesn't impact any wetland vegetation, I assume, right? The new septic?
I'm not sure where Kim would have showed you that, but I don't believe so. You were probably looking at the south, excuse me,
It was south, I think it was south. And Kim, I don't mean.
yeah, it was
to
down Old
mischaracterize.
Albany Post Road. We're probably on the opposite side of the property than that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
if that's where you were looking, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Laura?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay. Kim?
Okay, so am I on mute? No, I had to, my headphones died, so I hope you guys can hear me. So it looks like this is a different plan than the plan that we had before you went to the ZBA. So I'd just like to know what's new on this plan. If you can tell me. Like what changed?
I mean, really, the footprint is really the same. So the plan itself has changed. I mean, excuse me, is the same. The only change that we had made was on the facade facing Old Albany Post Road. We just tweaked out some of the dormer sizes.
Okay. So maybe I should ask this differently. So it looks like the patio, there's a patio shown. There's like an old patio and an extended patio.
So yes, we took the stone wall that is currently forming the patio and extending that over to the addition.
So are you relocating the stone wall?
Well, a portion of it gets removed when the old shed gets removed. So in that area that gets modified, we're extending the wall over.
Okay. What about the parking next to the building? That I don't remember seeing that on the first plan. Parking next to the new building.
So our intent is to really pull the driveway away from the house. So it's not going right up to it, and try to get some landscaping between the house and the drive. And so the driveway is meant to be just one sort of lane going towards the carriage doors of the barn. And then just the rest is a turnaround space. So we may have made some slight adjustments of just pulling it away from the house from those zonings.
So does that affect the site distance? Like how close is it to the corner?
No, we didn't touch where the curb cut is. Yeah,
okay.
that all remains the same.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Ron this question as well. I have not seen an application that had 2 septic systems in the past. And it sounds like you don't want to investigate the older septic system in case there's a problem with it. I'm just wondering, like, why not? What the point of not expanding the existing one is? Because having 2 septic systems makes it seem like it's 2 houses.
Sure. Harry, I'm going to let you speak to that because there was a lot of conversations on our end about trying to tie into the existing, but Harry, why don't you explain?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was what we wanted to do, but there's the house and the septic system were built prior to there's any records on the existing septic system, so we can't confirm whether we could route any more capacity to it. So we thought the easiest way forward would be to install a new system, since there's plenty of land and plenty of usable space, and a second system would still be code compliant to the well, to any setbacks, to the dwelling, to the pool. So it's the simplest way forward, and we simply couldn't get any information on the existing septic system from the health department or the building department.
So how do you know it works? You know, like if you don't know what's there, because I know what the septic systems in this county were like in the past, like it could be just a pit system, you know, and it's just interesting to me, like if you're gonna enlarge the house and you're gonna need more capacity and you have a pre-approved use, I don't understand how the house can get bigger and the septic not have to, and you not have to figure anything out about the existing system.
Well,
I mean, you know, because it sounds like you don't know what the existing system what its actual capacity is, because you can't find anything out about it. But aren't there ways to test that?
well, what's being discharged to the existing system is not changing. Everything new for the proposed addition will all be routed to the new septic system. They'll be completely separate from each other. So whatever's
But
routed to the
that's
existing
just in
system
terms
now
of
is
this-
not changing.
Okay, but the way I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way that I understand that the county's concern is the number of bedrooms. It's not the fixtures, it's not the number of bathrooms, it's the number of people occupying the house, right? And it seems to me that if you are having more people occupy the house, we don't actually know which facilities they're going to use and which septic system that's going to go to. You know what I mean? Like, so let's say you have, you know, 10 people staying in the house and nobody likes using the bathroom in the addition.
Well, like I said, we've been coordinating with the health department. They haven't had any concerns with our approach, and they know what we're proposing. We discussed it in the field and since, and they have no concerns. So as far as I'm concerned, we've been going based on their feedback.
Okay, so Ron, do you have any opinion on that?
No, I can understand your concern. I mean, again, if there's people visiting the property, they could be in any location. So that doesn't seem to be under consideration right now. It may be desirable to, again, respond to DOH, make them aware of that concern. It certainly would seem appropriate to at least do some preliminary investigations to know the adequacy of that system, because it's very likely very old. And even in the absence of an addition, may warrant some upgrade. So
But if it's based on a 4-bedroom, if it's a system based on a 4-bedroom house, then it's adequate for that part of that, for that existing condition, correct?
No, one would assume that. We just don't have any records, as you're acknowledging yourself. As
Well, I
said,
believe the county does have on record that it's sized for a 4-bedroom home. Is that not correct, Harry?
Right. Yeah, they just don't know how long the trenches are, how many of them there are, where they're located. The only thing that's on actually on file is where the septic system is located, and it's been maintained, and there's no signs of any failure on site.
Right, and in their database, it's recognized as for a system for a 4-bedroom home.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
The board is just raising the issue of recognizing it's a discrete SSTS that you're proposing for the addition. Very likely when people are occupying the dwelling, they're going to be in either residence. So it may warrant just further consideration by the Department of Health. If the board wishes, I could draft such a letter.
I would be in favor of that, you know, just so that we know that the Department of Health knows what they're looking at, and that they're looking at something that is considered to be a single house, since what you're asking us for is a single dwelling.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
It's quite
Yes.
possible that the Department of Health may be seeing this as a dwelling with an existing septic and an addition. But what we're being asked to approve here is a single dwelling. So that's my concern. So I would be in favor of explaining that to the Department.
Thanks, Kim. Do we want to go ahead and get a vote on having Ron draft a resolution or draft a letter to the Board of Health?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
So just so I understand, what we're doing is asking the Board of Health if they understand that this is a single family residence. Am I getting that right?
essentially.
We're actually asking Ron to write a memo to them explaining our
So-
concerns.
So that they understand what our concerns are.
Right. So Harry, when you made your correspondence and submissions, was it understood that, did they understand there was a single family?
Yes, they understood what was going on, that it was an addition being installed and that there's no record. So the cleanest approach was to take everything that's new to its own system.
Okay.
So they understand what the goals are here.
All right. So Ron, so they'll respond to Ron's memo to that effect is the expectation.
Yeah, it'll be a letter coming out from the board's signature.
Okay.
So it'll come back to the planning board. Any response that may be issued.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back to some of my concerns, and I'm going to ask, just, you know, because it's been a while since I've seen your original application. David, the patio was not on the original application.
I believe it was.
It was.
Yes.
Okay. The driveway was the driveway. I'm a little, I don't remember seeing that on the original application either. Has that been changed?
As I said, it's the existing driveway in terms of its curb cut out at the street.
At the street, but
yeah, the only modification we made is we have pulled it away from it's the existing, but we're taking away the driveway portion and making it more, you know, and landscaping those areas. So right now it goes.
You're plugging it into the new building, according to the drawings.
Yeah, well, no, it actually, the whole driveway goes right up to the new building. If we were to just put the new building there now, the stone driveway would go across the entire front of it. Instead, we're eliminating some of that stone driveway and putting plantings in front of the building.
Right, but you're routing the existing driveway as a cul-de-sac, sort of.
Correct. Yeah.
Round, and now I'm looking at the plans, and you've got it pointing right at this.
Well, it still has its cul-de-sac configuration. It's just that
you've added a driveway to the building.
No, don't think of it as adding a driveway to the building.
Why
Think of
not?
it as planting in front of the building.
No,
I
you're
think
saying
there's
you're
less
trying to get
drive
me to look
area.
at the plantings. I'm trying to look at the driveway going to the new building.
Right. Well, there's less, the driveway's already there.
No, the
Correct.
driveway's not already going to the building. The building doesn't exist yet.
The stone as it's configured today goes to the same place. There's area of gravel that's being removed actually, so that it's ungracious right now. It goes all the way up against the house.
All right.
And I think you'll find that the gravel area is about the same as what's there today. It's just somewhat reconfigured to be more gracious.
Okay. So do we want to, what I'm getting at, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to tease you, but
Well, we've
respectfully,
we've been doing this since July of
Right, I
2020.
understand.
So, and I know
understand,
how
but,
hard you all work at this stuff, but it's been
I
a
know.
most tedious process.
Yeah.
And
It is. It's the nature of the beast. It's what, you know. So my question.
yeah,
what-
my
what-
kids
what-
are
what-
growing
what-
old though, right? So
What
Yeah.
I'm getting at is that I want to ask the board if in their opinion this would warrant another site visit. Now, we just got done with the last application talking about other, you know, is it worth going to look at again? It seems, do we want to take a fresh look at this in light of the new septic system and the driveway and some other questions? And I'm just going to put that out there for the board.
So I would say no. I don't need to look at it. I also drive by that vicinity on a pretty regular basis. I know it pretty well.
well, you're welcome to stop by.
Oh, well, thank you. What I would like to do is see what the Board of Health has to say, you know, see where the Board of Health approval goes. That's what I'm chiefly interested in. But I do not do another.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
I don't feel a need to see it. I don't drive by it, but I don't need to see it.
Okay. So, Ron, then what are we ready to move ahead with here? Declare it as a minor site plan and determine the public hearing. I'm assuming if we don't want to do another site visit, then we can just get straight
Right.
to the public hearing.
Tonight you can declare it a minor project, just pursuant to your zoning regulations, and get that resolved.
Okay. Can I get a motion to have them to declare it a minor action? Heidi first, or I'm sorry, Kim, Heidi, all in favor? Okay, thank you. And can we schedule a public, or motion to have a public hearing? Gonna hear first. Okay, Kim, Laura, thank you. All in favor? Okay, so Cheryl, do you want to give us some ideas? Or thank you, Dennis, sorry. Dennis, you're not on my screen, I'm sorry. Do we want to have Cheryl? Cheryl, how are we doing with time? Or how are we doing with the date on the public hearing?
We could do it for the next month, June 17th meeting.
Okay, that would put the site, I'm sorry, that would put, okay. So that would put it at next month's meeting. Do we need a motion for that? We just did that. Okay.
I pose a question for the applicant. When do you expect to make the formal filing with the Putnam County Department of Health for the new sanitary?
By end of next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I think
Neil, can I ask you a
Sure,
question? Neil
absolutely.
Tillman, it's Chris Flagg. I'm just so I can understand and explain to my wife how we're doing. Can you help me understand what the path forward looks like or may look like?
Well, we would have the public hearing, and then we're waiting to clear your Board of Health issues. And then
Right.
we'll go from there. Right now, you're really waiting on the Board of Health.
Okay, so what does go from there mean? There's a public hearing and then there's a vote, or there's a public hearing and then we wait another month, or how does this go?
Well, there'd be a public
I'm
hearing.
not familiar with it because I don't do this every
No,
day,
that's
so-
all right.
Yeah,
No, that's fine. We would have the public hearing, and then we would, we would have to decide whether or not we wanted to wait for the feedback from the board. Well, we would actually have to wait for the feedback from the Board of Health, correct, Ron?
Well, you could await it, or you could just make it a condition of an action the board takes, so that you could move it through a resolution, and he would not have to come back before the board, but he would not get his site plan signed and endorsed until the Department of Health approval was in hand by the board.
And if it was made a condition today, does that eliminate that piece of it, that without it, that it's required for?
The board typically makes a decision as to when they want resolutions prepared. No one has yet today suggested that they want resolutions for the next meeting.
We need to have the public hearing.
Yeah, we need to have the public hearing first.
Does the
Often
previous public hearing, did we not have a public hearing?
No.
You've not had a public hearing before the planning board. You certainly have had one before the.
I'm sorry, you're right.
zoning board of
That was
appeals.
the zoning board. I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. We prepared to move on. Neil, you want to take over?
Yeah, there's not much left to do. Neil Tillman, well done. You and Kim have proven your value as being the first and second vice chairs of this board. Thank you very much for your service. Any new business for anyone?
Me.
Kim's got a.
Kim, please.
Okay, so based on what we were talking about earlier, about Riverview and about, trusting the applicant to do the right thing in terms of following through with what they said they were going to do. I would like to point out that when we talked about ESP, Ron, one of the things Ron asked us about was if we wanted that building as close to the road as it is, and part of our reasoning for doing that was so that they would keep all of their supplies, et cetera, things for sale behind the building. And I drive by ESP every day, and he's got more and more stuff out in front of the building in the parking spaces there. So I would like to request that we send a letter to the building inspector, the code enforcement officer, to, if it is indeed true that they're in violation of your site plan, that we've noticed this is going on.
Kim, I want to thank you for raising that. A topic I raised, maybe it was, could have been a year ago, actually, could have been pre-COVID. I raised a topic, and I think Steve Gaba was not in love with it, which was creating a standing opportunity for board members to raise observational concerns they had in town. But I think it is wonderful, well, wonderful is the wrong word, but appropriate for board members to do that. You guys, along with members of the ZBA and the Conservation Board, play a role that most in town do not, which is you have almost a fiduciary responsibility to those things. So I think it's a great observation. I think it's very fair for Ron. Ron, is that in your bailiwick of your day job?
Yeah, no, that'd be fine.
Thank you. And I will encourage other board members, if you see something that's gratuitous, or I should say egregious, I think raising that is meaningful, and thank you for raising that. Any other topics around that vein?
Didn't we send a letter to some entity or another about problems with traffic on Route 9 and our concerns about
I think we
traffic?
sent one to the town. I think we sent one to the town board, and our ex officio town board member can raise that, can remind us. But I think we sent it to the town board that we were concerned about the rising level of traffic and projects on Route 9, and enlisting their support to reach out to the DOT. That's what I believe we did.
And did we hear anything back in terms of
Yeah,
whether?
I recall.
Not to put you on the spot, Bob.
No, I recall the letter, and I think it was right around the, where we were talking about the
CRS.
CRS up there
Yeah.
as well. So I'll bring it up to the board again. I don't think we did any action on that whatsoever.
Okay.
I think the ask was to ask you to interface with DOT. I think because we, look, that's it's a fair request, not inconceivable that we do something and not meaningless. So thank you for raising that, Heidi. Other new business. Okay. See you members of the public and board members on the third Thursday of the month of June. May I have a motion to adjourn? I can only see Heidi, so great. Second. Okay. God bless you all. Take care. Have a good night. Goodbye. Goodbye.
So long, everyone.
Good night.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ron. Thanks, Adam.
Take care. Thank you.